use a teleprompter when speaking about President Trump? Or are you able to just kind of riff on your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's so stupid. Look at the lame, inane things that he said. He's so stupid, he can't even say anything clever or smooth. He's a moron.
There are moments in American history that you simply cannot prepare yourself for. Moments where two people from completely different worlds with completely different weapons stand up at exactly the same time and say, enough. Enough noise, enough threats, enough. And what happens next shakes the entire country so hard that even the people who thought they had seen everything had to sit down, catch their breath, and ask themselves, did that just happen? Did that actually just happen on live television? Because what Robert De Niro and Jimmy Kimmel did, separately, together, relentlessly, did not just make headlines, it made history. And Donald Trump's reaction, furious, desperate, completely uncontrolled, told the whole country everything it needed to know about a man who can dish it out, but absolutely cannot take it back.
It feels like every Monday now I come and I say, the president had his most paranoid, untethered, mentally disconnected weekend yet. And then the next weekend, he tops it. It's incredible. This weekend, he started with an old favorite, bashing a music superstar. He did it with Bad Bunny. He did it with Taylor Swift. And now Bruce Springsteen seems to be poking around his ass. And I want to
stay with me, because this story starts long before the moment everyone remembers. And once you understand how it built, brick by brick, threat by threat, response by response, the ending will hit you harder than you ever expected. The air for making fun of Donald Trump. So, I want to explain. Let us begin with Jimmy Kimmel, because what happened to him in September 2025 was not a joke. It was not a bit. It was not late-night drama manufactured for ratings. It was real. The FCC, Trump's FCC run by his personal appointee, had publicly threatened ABC's broadcast licenses. Why? Because Kimmel had delivered a monologue, a comedy monologue, the kind of thing late-night hosts have done for 70 years in this country. And the government of the United States decided that this particular joke from this particular man was dangerous enough to threaten the network's ability to broadcast at all. Think about that. Sit with that for a moment. The government of the United States threatening a private television network because a comedian made a joke. ABC caved. Kimmel went off the air for 6 days, 6 days where he did not know if he still had a career. 6 days where he sat at home wondering if everything he had built was gone because a president could not handle being laughed at.
And then the next weekend, he tops it. It's incredible. This weekend, he started with an old favorite, bashing a music superstar. He did it with Bad Bunny. He did it with Taylor Swift. And now Bruce Springsteen seems to be poking around his ass. And I want to start this by saying I saw Bruce Springsteen at the Forum on Thursday night. Not only was he great, he was just absolutely great. He's 76 years old. He has more...
And here is what happened on the night he came back. Are you ready for this? Because the number alone should tell you everything about what was at stake. 6.26 million people watched that episode, the highest-rated broadcast in the entire history of Jimmy Kimmel Live. 6 million people who showed up specifically, deliberately, because a government had tried to silence one man, and they wanted him to know that they were watching, that they were there, that it had not worked. Kimmel walked onto that stage at the El Capitan Theater on Hollywood Boulevard, and the audience did not just applaud, they stood, they chanted. The sound was not just enthusiasm, it was a statement. And what Kimmel delivered that night was not a comedy monologue. It was a speech about the First Amendment from a man who had just spent 6 days not knowing if he was coming back, delivered to 6 million Americans who showed up because a government tried to make them stay home. But that was only the beginning of what made that night unforgettable. Because Kimmel had something planned that nobody in that audience was expecting. He announced that he had invited FCC Chairman Brendan Carr onto the show. He said Carr had agreed to appear by video call. The screen behind Kimmel lit up, and there, instead of Brendan Carr, was Robert De Niro. The man who played Vito Corleone, the man who played Jimmy Conway, the man who played Jake LaMotta, playing the FCC chairman as a mob enforcer from Goodfellas. The studio lost its mind. De Niro did not blink. He refused to give his name. He said he had been appointed by, and here is the exact quote, Sir Trump, for whom he used to do some work. He spoke in a heavy Brooklyn accent. He was completely, utterly, terrifyingly in character. And his opening line, the line that made 6 million people simultaneously burst out laughing and realized they were watching something they would remember for the rest of their lives, was this. So, you tell Whoopi over there she better show a little respect, or the only view she's getting is from under George Washington. The bridge, not the guy. The audience erupted because it was perfect. A mob enforcer threatening to throw someone off the George Washington Bridge while pretending to protect free speech.
I mean, he's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig. He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt who doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't do his homework, doesn't care, thinks he's gaming society, doesn't pay his taxes. He's an idiot. Colin Powell said it best. He's a national disaster. He's an embarrassment to this country. It makes me so angry that this country has gotten to this point, that this fool.
The image of Trump's entire censorship campaign captured in a single devastating sentence. Kimmel pushed forward. He pointed out that De Niro's character was cursing on a broadcast network, the very network the FCC regulated. De Niro's response came without hesitation. I am the effing FCC. I can say whatever the F I want. And then came the announcement that froze the room and started traveling around the internet before the segment had even finished. De Niro's character announced the FCC's new policy. Speech ain't free no more, he said. We're charging by the word now. The audience understood exactly what those words meant, because it was not a joke about made-up characters in a fictional situation. It was a perfect, crystal-clear description of exactly what had actually happened to Kimmel, to ABC, to free speech in America, turned into comedy so precise it felt like surgery. Trump's response came within hours. He posted on Truth Social calling De Niro a wacko and pathetic. His communications team released a furious statement. The administration that had caused Kimmel's suspension, that had threatened a network's licenses because a comedian told a joke, had absolutely no answer to the mob boss sketch except to attack the man who performed it. Because what do you say when Robert De Niro, one of the most respected actors in the history of American cinema, walks onto live television and plays your FCC chair as a Goodfellas enforcer, and the image lands so perfectly, so completely, so undeniably, that it becomes the defining visual of your entire censorship campaign? You say wacko because you have nothing else. But here is what you need to understand about Robert De Niro, because this was not the first time, and it was not the last time, and the pattern between De Niro and Trump stretches back years in ways that prove this was never just a celebrity feud. This was something much more serious, much more deliberate, and much more personal. De Niro had already stood outside a New York courthouse in 2024, before cameras, before reporters, before the whole country watching, and delivered a speech that Trump could not stop talking about for weeks afterward. He had already spoken at the No Kings rallies, the nationwide protest that swept across America, recording a video seen by millions, saying plainly and without performance, the original No Kings protest was 250 years ago. Americans decided they did not want to live under King George. Now we have a would-be king who wants to take it all back. And then De Niro said 3 words that traveled around the world by morning regarding King Donald and what the country should do about it. De Niro said simply, forget that. He did not say it politely. The crowd at those rallies understood exactly what he meant. So did Trump, who immediately called him sick and demented and said he had a peanut-sized brain. Then the State of the Union arrived, the longest on record, 1 hour and 47 minutes. The same night, De Niro appeared on live television and said something that every person in this country who stayed up to watch it still remembers. He will never leave, De Niro said. We have to make him leave. He said Trump was dangerous. He said the threat was real. He said if people did not take it seriously enough, they would wake up and find that the world they recognized no longer existed. Trump's response the next day? He called De Niro a failing actor at a rally, said nobody goes to see his movies anymore, said his voice did not matter because his last film did not perform well at the box office. Let that sink in for a moment. The President of the United States, responding to warnings about democracy and free speech and the concentration of power, chose to attack an actor's box office numbers. As if ticket sales determine whether a warning is worth hearing, as if the size of an opening weekend decides whether the truth is true. That response told you more about the man in the White House than any investigation, any report, any hearing ever could. Because a confident leader does not spend his evenings posting about comedians and actors. A secure man does not call a 70-year-old film legend sick and demented because the film legend said something he did not like. A president who is winning does not obsessively, repeatedly, desperately mention by name the people who criticize him. He simply does not. And the fact that Trump cannot stop, cannot rest, cannot ignore, cannot look away, tells you everything about where the real power in that exchange actually lives. Kimmel understood it. De Niro understood it. And 6 million Americans who showed up on that September night understood it too. Because what those two men did together, one with a monologue, one with a mob boss sketch, both with something Trump has never been able to manufacture, was demonstrate in the clearest possible terms what happens when you try to silence people who refuse to be silent. You make them louder. You give them an audience that would not have existed without the attempt at censorship. You hand them the moral authority that comes only to those who keep speaking after being told to stop. And you prove, night after night, post after furious post, that the one thing you fear most is not their criticism. It is the question behind the criticism. The simple, specific, answerable question that you cannot answer without the spell breaking. The government threatened a network. The network caved. The comedian came back to the highest ratings in his career. The greatest actor of his generation played the man who made it happen as a mob enforcer. And Trump, sitting somewhere watching, because he is always watching, had nothing to say except the same tired words he reaches for every time reality refuses to move in the direction he needs it to. Wacko. Pathetic. Peanut-sized brain. Words that land like paper on a man who spent 6 days at home, not knowing if he still had a show. And came back to 6 million people standing in his honor. Some fights you start because you think you can win, and some fights you start without understanding who you are fighting. And some nights, live on television, in front of the entire country, you find out exactly which kind of fight this was all along.